I have been a Luigi supporter since before I knew who Luigi was. I think, like a lot of people, I supported whoever the suspect was. I know a lot of people even were donating to his fund before they even knew who the suspect was. I support him for several reasons. There's the healthcare aspect of it. I had an experience like everyone does. Everyone has a story, and mine, I watched my father die of a terminal illness. And for several years, he was not able to get the medication or the care that he needed because they were just waiting for him to die. And it is an experience that I think a lot of Americans have, and it's why a lot of people support Luigi. The healthcare industry, to be clear, didn't kill my dad, but they essentially tortured him to death. I mean, when you are sick and you're not able to receive the care that you need or the medications that you need, there's a prolonged suffering that you experience that is horrific. In my dad's case, it made him extremely weak to where he couldn't walk sometimes. He needed help to walk. He had chronic stomach pains. He had chronic headaches. He had to work up until he went into a coma the last month of his life. And it was really unnecessary. Again, he just needed different medications and insurance refused to cover them. Another aspect of why I support him is because of the ridiculous sort of circus that they have created over this, continuing to disrespect him and violate his rights, his constitutional rights, starting with this perp walk. And, I mean, we just captured the the leader of Venezuela, and he didn't get the perp walk that Luigi got. It was just ridiculous. And so, that was sort of the first of it. But since then, I mean, there's been a lot of information that has come out about how there, was maybe an improper search, and they listened to phone calls, and then they were like, oops, we didn't mean to do that. And it just shows you, there's a lot of eyes on this case. If that's what they can get away with in such a high profile case where everybody's watching, it really should make you think about what would happen if, one of us were in that situation. And then there's the question of his innocence. And, there's I think that there, within the community of people that support him, I think that there's those that support him because they think that he did it and they see it as a righteous act. And then there's some that support him because they think he's innocent and they're not giving him a fair trial. And I think both of those are valid, and I'm not committed to either one of those at this point, but I think they're both valid arguments. I have not attended any of the hearings. I live too far away, and I'm not sure that I would be able to, even if I were close, because I know that people camp out, and that's not something I would be able to do physically. I do get most of my information from people who do attend the hearings. There's a lot of independent journalists and creators that go and then sort of debrief on what they saw and what they experienced. And so that's usually where I get my information on the hearings. And then usually after I see that, I'll also see it, in news clips. But the news clips are pretty laughable because they always seem to reduce his support to just, the women that are there. I was aware that his next hearing is going to be whether or not the death penalty is going to be on the table. I think a lot of us have been holding our breath, and I'm pretty nervous to see how that's going to go. But I really hope they take it off the table. I think you could make a lot of arguments against the death penalty. I think it's barbaric, but I don't think you necessarily have to look at it from a moral standpoint. There's just there's a lot of practical reasons why it's not something that we should be doing. It's expensive. pharmaceutical companies don't want to offer the drug cocktails that they need, so there's a shortage of them, which has led to them trying to find alternative ways, and it just gets gradually more barbaric. They've like implemented a firing squad in one state at least. I know in Oklahoma they had a really terrible. Well, Oklahoma has a long history of botched death penalty cases, but recently they had one where it was so terrible that it was traumatizing for the witnesses, and that they described being re-traumatized by having watched this, even though they were victims of this guy or new victims of this guy, just because it was just so horrific to watch. I really can't fathom Luigi getting the death penalty. I think it would be just the ultimate proof of how we live in a different justice system than wealthy people do. You know, at the same time that, and I don't want to downplay the fact that somebody died. I mean, obviously, this man was killed, and that's sad, always. But I don't think that this case warrants the death penalty, because there's been so many other similar events, especially in New York City. And, not to mention the fact that we've had countless mass shootings, and none of these mass shooters got the death penalty or were treated the way Luigi has been treated in the press. I think that also, I think they want to make an example out of him. So at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised, because I think that's what they've been doing all along. They paraded him around like this trophy, showing, this is what happens when you mess with somebody in our tax bracket. I just think that if they put him to death, it would be outrageous, and it would prove all of us right that we live in a different world than the rich do.